Welcome to the Line Life Podcast. I'm Jeff Postlethwaite, Senior Editor of T&D World, and today we're bringing you more stories of the grit, courage, and inspirational teamwork that it takes to be a line worker.
Thank you for tuning in to the T&D World Line Life Podcast, produced by Endeavor Business Media, a division of Endeavor B2B. My name is Amy Fischbach, and I'm the field editor for T&D World and also the host of the Line Life Podcast. Before I dive into today's episode, I invite you to become part of our Line Life Podcast community by searching for the Line Life Podcast in your favorite podcasting app or going to linelife.podbean.com and clicking follow in the top right. We air interview-style episodes on the first and third Fridays of each month, and also audio stories in our In Case You Missed It series featuring articles that appeared in our print magazine on the second and fourth Fridays of each month. If you have a comment on this episode or a suggestion for a future guest, please reach out to me. You can email me at amyfischbach@gmail.com or reach out to me on LinkedIn or on Instagram at Lyman World. I'd love to hear from you. Also, if you plan to be in town in Kansas City for the 2025 International Lineman's Rodeo Week, make sure you stop by the T&D World booth where I will be doing recordings for future episodes of the Line Life Podcast. I look forward to putting you in the spotlight. Now let's move on to today's episode. Last week, I had the opportunity to celebrate the utility vegetation management industry with 1,500 other attendees at the 2025 Trees and Utilities event in downtown Knoxville, Tennessee. Over the course of 3 days, I had the opportunity to meet with foresters, arborists, and others who support the UVM industry. The event featured a full trade show as well as networking receptions and also conference sessions on everything from biodiversity to workforce management to technology to women in UVM. The keynote speaker for the 2025 Trees and Utilities Conference was Michelle Mays-Curran, a former U.S. Air Force fighter pilot who recently wrote a book called The Flip Side: How to Invert Your Perspective and Turn Fear into Your Superpower. She dropped this book on the day of her talk, which was titled Flying Through Fear: How Vulnerability Fuels Success. She is only the second woman in history to serve as a solo lead pilot for the elite show team called the Thunderbirds. To learn more about Michelle, you can read her book, which is available on Amazon and anywhere books are sold. And now let's go ahead and dive into today's episode, in which I'm honored to feature an interview that I had with Dennis Fallon, the Executive Director of the Utility Arborist Association. I work with Dennis and his team every year on the Vegetation Management Supplement, which T&D World publishes in partnership with the UAA. Here's my interview with Dennis from the Convention Center in Knoxville, Tennessee. I'm here live reporting from Knoxville, Tennessee, the home of the 2025 Trees and Utilities. And Dennis, thank you so much for joining us today for this episode of the Line Life Podcast.
Hey, Amy, thanks for having me.
So Dennis, we're here on the final day of the Trees and Utilities Conference. Can you talk about how the event has grown over the years and how many attendees that you have this year?
This has gone really well this year. It's quite the show. We're setting another record. I haven't seen the full final count, but I know we'll be close to, if not over 1,500 attendees this year. We've got 130 some exhibitors out on the show floor. We've had 3.5 days of jam-packed activities going on. Just a ton of education, a ton of learning, collaboration, connection. So it's been a great week all the way around.
So the first Trees and Utilities event that I went to was a few years ago in Omaha. Can you talk about how the event brings utility vegetation management professionals together?
The big driver is to get up and come together and collaborate and learn and share. And those are the big things. Every time we get together, Trees and Utilities, it's really about the ampersand in trees and utilities. It's not trees or utilities, it's trees and utilities. How do they coexist and how do they coexist well? And that's kind of maybe the overarching theme every time we come together is how to manage those things. Lots of advancements in the environmental space over the last few years for sure, really out on the landscape. But even prior to, it's been going on for close to a decade to try to develop over to that area. Equipment developments that are making people safer and helping mechanized work, which helps with the dwindling workforce that has a lot of options right now to be in any work space. So to help with that gap, we're seeing more equipment and more mechanization, and lots of advancements in technology to help us plan and manage and map and maintain work and workflows. So pretty exciting stuff.
And then, Dennis, what are you seeing in terms of biodiversity and IVM?
That is really going up, becoming quite a topic. We're seeing a rise in biological controls. And what that really means is by finding native and natural plant communities, they'll actually push out invasive plants or invader plants from those communities. So the communities will hold together and hold strong. So over time, if you connect and get the correct native landscape established in a corridor, it'll actually help kind of maintain itself. It's always going to need manipulation and maintenance and monitoring in order to go that way. We're getting native plants where they belong, which is native plant communities, creates habitat, which creates other wildlife and other opportunities. So there's a lot of win-win in that space, and it's really starting to gain traction out there. And it's an important place to be, because when diversity goes down, species counts goes down. Some of those species we're dependent on for our food production and food populations. So there's a direct impact to society to have positive, nature-forward work in our corridors and biodiversity anywhere we can, making sure we're leaving diverse plant communities behind us on our corridors.
And over the past few years, you've had a Women in Vegetation Management pre-conference workshop. And this year you had it as a panel session as well as doing the workshop. Can you talk about the importance of including this as part of the conference?
Yeah, the Women in Vegetation Management, or Empowering Women in Vegetation Management Conference has been going on, I think since 2018 was the first one that was held. And that's a really powerful group to try to raise awareness for opportunities in the industry for maybe what at the time was non-traditional folks. So we're seeing a much larger presence of women in the industry, which is great, and all sorts of people coming into the industry that maybe historically weren't traditionally in this space. So that's been really super positive.
And then talk about some of the other pre-conference activities that you had here this year.
The National Urban and Community Forestry Advisory Committee was here, and NUCFAC, which is a U.S. Forest Service group. And they were doing a listening session. They had a public comment period on Monday afternoon and then came out to the listening session. They're working on the 2027 to 2037. It's a 10-year forest plan for urban and community forests, and looking to make sure that utilities are represented in there. Our communities are dependent on both the natural infrastructure as well as the built infrastructure out there. And incorrect planning of either the built infrastructure or the natural infrastructure can cause conflicts between the two. So getting input from folks that know about these systems, whether electric distribution system, transmission systems, or any other built infrastructure, as well as the folks that are working on our natural infrastructure, our parks, our trees, all the natural elements to our communities, getting them at the planning tables early and often to make sure that we can design conflict out of our programs instead of inadvertently creating conflict in our communities that ultimately at the end of the day impact both those infrastructures and likely cost the user money.
And then talk about the fireside chat with the cooperatives and what attendees learned from that discussion today.
Yeah, this morning's panel on the fireside chat with the cooperatives, we had a nice representation from across the country, and including Alaska at the table, which was a lot of fun, all the way from the East Coast to the South Coast of Alaska. And cooperatives are a little bit different in the opportunity where the way they're governed, the way they're managed versus an investor-owned utility. So it's fun to get that group together and listen to their challenges, which are very similar but at a different scale, and the opportunities that they have from a cooperative standpoint. I personally live on a cooperative electric and have interacted with those folks for a long time and work pretty well. You know, by definition, it's our rural electric areas that come into that space for the most part. And this panel today really gives an opportunity for folks to come together and share ideas, which is really the premise of where the UAA, the Utility Arborist Association, came from in the first place. It was a group of arborists that were challenged with working around energy infrastructure, that wanted to talk to other arborists who were facing similar challenges and similar opportunities about that. And that's what this panel does today. It allows those folks that work in a cooperative construct to engage with other cooperatives on what's working, what's not working, what's their frustrations, what's their opportunities, and then where can we get a larger network together to help work through these successes and work through these challenges.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Dennis. Is there anything else that you'd like to say on this Line Life podcast episode about trees and utilities?
I appreciate that. I mean, thanks for having me on. Trees and Utilities, if you haven't been, is probably the largest gathering of utility vegetation managers on the planet. Happens annually. Next year we'll be in Portland, Oregon. So come out and see us. I think it's worth the trip. We've got a lot of interest going on. There's a lot of folks coming out there. Obviously, I'm biased. I've been coming for a long time, and now we put the show on. But I've heard from a lot of first-timers that have been out here this week. They were impressed. We've got a lot of new affinity groups that are here, TCIA and the Urban and Community Forestry Society, and some of these other groups that are present, and even the Knoxville group that was here, who were astonished as what's really happening here and how powerful the group is and how much education is going on. And yet, it's a large group and still has a nice intimate feel where there's opportunity to collaborate and learn and build your network. So come on down and see us.
Thank you so much, Dennis. I enjoyed talking to you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Line Life podcast produced by Endeavor Business Media, a division of Endeavor B2B. Be sure to subscribe or follow the Line Life podcast in your favorite podcasting app so new episodes will be delivered straight to you. For more insights, you can visit our website at tdworld.com/podcasts or linelife.podbean.com. You can also connect with us by following us on Instagram at Lyman World or on Facebook, LinkedIn, or X. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Line Life podcast.